and this is our live episode for September. Somehow I still can't believe it's September somehow. I like blinked. It's because I had the flu for like most of the winter, it felt like.
Yeah.
Before we start, because we're live and we don't have the opening trailer, I just want to acknowledge we're on Ghana land today, and to pay my respects to elders past and present, and also to acknowledge the rich storytelling traditions and knowledge through storytelling of this country. We're really blessed to be here today. I am also blessed to be here today with Peyton Hogan.
Hi.
Millie Heffernan.
That's me.
Justina Ashman.
Hello.
And Abby Guy.
Hi.
And we're really glad to have you all with us. We're going to be talking about Fiona Wright's The World Was Whole. But before we dive into telling you a little bit about the book, if you haven't read it yet, let's have a look who made the snacks and drink. I made the Waratah cocktail.
Oh, is it
beautiful?
Good?
It's really good. I did not have one of the ingredients. There was some liqueur thing that I did not have. So it's missing one thing. But other than that, it's great.
Nice.
Feel quite relaxed.
I
did not have enough ingredients for either of our drink options this month. So
I
don't like lemon lime bitters. Yeah, I don't like lemon, which is wild because I pick the drinks, but
it's pink, really. How can you not like pink drink? Well, mine's barely looks pink, but
yeah,
I was gonna say that looks like water.
well, so the soda water that I used was flat. So,
so it is kind of like water.
Yeah,
flavored
so
water.
It kind of is. It's basically cordial, is what I'm drinking.
Yeah,
not lemon lime bitters.
Nice.
It's the pre-made. It's out of a bottle. I didn't make it myself.
No, you gotta be kind to yourself. Some days you can make it from scratch. Some days you can't.
Yeah. Do you know what? So, speaking of life writing, so I feel like I can tangent here with a personal story. When I used to work at the bar of a lawn bowls club, I used to do make the lemon lime bitters from scratch because we had the like.
How do you do?
Wow.
Well, you have bitters. You have.
Oh, I see what you mean. I thought for some
juice.
reason, I thought in my head you made the bitters from scratch. I'm like,
no. We
I
had like a bottle of bitters. Anyway, I would make it from scratch, and I remember I would always do it this way. And like, someone at one point was like, "Wow, like, oh, not a lot of people do it from scratch. A lot of them just use the gun." And I was like, "The gun." And I didn't know there was pre-mixed lemon lime bitters on the like soft drink gun. Yeah. I was like, the gun.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in hospital, we made it from scratch like that. But I have met people who make their own aromatics, like their own bitters.
Ah, nice.
Right.
I don't even know what that means. So
there you go.
Me either. I just put it in the recipe. What does that mean?
Did everyone bring snacks as well as drinks?
I did.
I have a little Reese's Pieces.
Mine was a long day. I ate mine. I had some vegetables and hummus here, and I ate it.
Yum!
I made fairy bread as my like childhood snack.
Oh,
that's perfect.
Because
that's so nice.
Every childhood party I ever went to had fairy bread, and all I ate was like watermelon and fairy bread.
Yes,
we still make fairy bread for our 30-year-old parties.
Yeah,
love fairy bread.
Yes, you should. That's a great idea. I take it to picnics.
I've started making like fairy shortbread. So you make shortbread and then you put a little bit of icing and then you put sprinkles on it.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, really good.
Writing notes for future snack of the month. Maybe make us.
I wanted to do like, you know, those little smiley potatoes.
Yeah.
Huge for us when I was a kid, and I can't find them.
There's gonna be some really toxic chemical in them. You know how all the good stuff from when you were young is gone? Like the red cordial is not red cordial from when you're a kid. Yeah. They've taken out the carcinogens.
I should have done chicken nuggets to be fully true to my child self. But no, I brought pili nuts, which are they're like. Oh, this packet is fresh. My mum always brings them back from the Philippines because we love them so much. And you simply can't, as far as I know, get them in Australia, and definitely not the way that this lady who makes them near where my mum's family in the Philippines makes them. I don't know if you can really, I'm going to do the influencer thing. It's like coated
Nice.
in like a caramel, like sugar type thing.
Yum.
And they're like
Yum.
crunchy and sweet because of the sugar, but then like the nut itself is like super buttery. It's just it's lovely.
No, I'm jealous now.
Yeah, now I know I
I'll bring
can't
some to our
purchase
next recording day.
Mine is so mid in comparison. I have a Vegemite roll.
Oh, yeah,
Ah,
that is
brilliant.
also a kid.
It's Aussie.
I ate that as a kid.
Yeah.
Timeless.
And then Cole started making those Vegemite scrolls, and it was like, that's so fancy.
Everyone I work with eats those for lunch, and I'm kind of jealous. I just take Vegemite sandwiches, but we're all eating Vegemite.
Yeah. In the end, we're all eating Vegemite.
The other
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say the other childhood roll is a like buttered roll with just chips. Chips.
I was going to ask because you grew up in the ACT, Millie. Did they have double cut rolls? Because my partner swears they didn't have double cut rolls in New South Wales when he was growing up, and that
What's a double cut roll?
There you go. You know, in South Australia, from the tuck shop at school or whatever, you'd get a roll, but it was like cut into 2 sandwiches put on top of each other. Did you guys have a double cut roll? Apparently, it's a South Australian thing.
No.
We didn't call it a double cut roll.
What did you call it? Just a roll.
Just a roll.
Apparently, something.
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah. What a waste of bread if you're not turning it into 2 sandwiches.
And that's like all the different names for smiley frits. It's never the same.
Yeah.
All right, let's
even
get
tuck
to the
shop.
book.
Yeah, even tuck shop.
At one of my schools, it was
it.
a canteen, and then at one, it was a tuck shop.
Tuck shop feels a bit private school, doesn't it? It's kind of like a private.
Yeah, it was tuck shop at the Catholic school and canteen at the public school.
Yeah,
I only ever had canteen, so there you go.
I went to a Catholic school and it was sort of interchangeably tuck shop and canteen. Yeah.
The blend of demographics at your school, basically. All right, Fiona Wright, let's dive in. I'm going to just read a little bit about Fiona. Now, she's one of those authors I feel like I've heard about for years and have read her essays for years and is like just an Australian treasure is what I was going to say. Like she is one of those figures in Australian literature that I feel has seeped into the fabric of things. But I actually had not read the collection, so I want to thank Justina for recommending it. I'll read a little bit about Fiona and then I'll hand over to Justina to tell us a bit about the book. But essentially the way I first met Fiona's work was as a poet and then as an essayist. I think I'd read an essay or two, maybe the essay that won the Nita B. Kibble Award, and then as a critic. So she lives in Sydney and she won the Nita B. Kibble Award in 2016 with Small Acts of Disappearance, her essays on hunger, and it also won the Queensland Literary Award for non-fiction. Her first poetry collection won the 2012 Dame Mary Gilmore Award, which is the year I first heard about her. And her second poetry collection, Domestic Interior, was published in 2017. She also is part of the PhD Club. She has a PhD from Western Sydney University's Writing and Social Society Research Centre. And The World Was Whole is published by Giramondo Press. And I'm going to hand over to Justine to tell us about the book.
Yeah, I'm just going to read the blurb. Apologies for the lingering cough, the infamous cough. Anyway, so our bodies and homes are our shelters, each one intimately a part of the other. But what about those who feel anxious, uncomfortable, unsettled within these havens? In The World Was Whole, Fiona Wright examines how we inhabit and remember the familiar spaces of our homes and suburbs as we move through them and away from them into the wider world, devoting ourselves to the routines and rituals that make up our lives. These deeply personal essays consider how all-consuming the engagement with the ordinary can be and how small details and encounters can illuminate our lives. Many of the essays are set in the inner and southwestern suburbs of a major Australian city in the midst of rapid change. Others travel to the volcanic coastline of Iceland, the megacity of Shanghai, the rugged surf coast of southern Victoria. The essays are poetic and observant and often funny, animated by curiosity and candor. Beneath them all lies the experience of chronic illness and its treatment, and the consideration of how this can reshape and reorder our assumptions about the world and our place within it. Yeah. And yeah, Amy mentioned that this was my pick for book club. I kind of, when we were doing our planning document, just sort of wrote it in. And then funnily enough, that was sort of enough, and everyone was just like, "Yep, sounds good." And I was like, "Okay."
Then we were all like, we haven't read that. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Imagine if we hated it. We would have
know, I
blamed
know,
you.
I actually kind of think, I mean, we love to be positive, be able to speak positively about books on this podcast, but I almost think having a like discussion where we all have totally different experiences of a book would be interesting.
Yeah. I think we should pick
one day.
like I think for next year we should pick some kind of older book where the author's not necessarily alive, so we can really go to town.
Yeah, a pity we liked
Yeah.
Jane Austen so much.
Yeah.
True.
But yeah, I
Well,
love this book.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
So you go.
I said, I just feel like it's such a thoughtful like meditation on like how to exist. I feel like that's something when I read it, I was really like trying to figure out, and I feel like is a constant thing everyone's trying to figure out. Just like, how do you be a person in the world? Which sounds so big, but it's like, I feel like just the problem, the problem of how to like make sense of your life and make sense of all the things around you and how you fit into it.
It's interesting you said that, because I was thinking about them. Sometimes you do a meditation, and in loving kindness meditation, one of the lines is, it's hard to be a person in a body in the world. And that, when you said that, that's what I was thinking of, that the book really does capture the rub of being in a body, and then the body in the world, and then the pleasure of small things, like the way her life, sometimes because of illness, sort of narrows down to being focused on these very everyday objects and experiences. And there's such a kind of beauty in it. Like, it doesn't feel suffocating. It feels like a intense concentration on every moment.
Yeah. At the time, that was definitely something I related to, and all that, like the ways that dealing with home and concepts of like place and how they change around you, and feeling either unfamiliar in a familiar place, or feeling like you're in a new place that you don't fit into. Because I read it when I was living in Melbourne as well, which was my first time living outside of Adelaide. And so I was like very much kind of figuring out who I was in a new place, and then visiting home, and both feeling like I was at home when I was home, but also a visitor in your own home. It was a lot of those strange feelings of feeling like you're not quite sitting correctly in your surroundings, which I was like, yes, a lot of this like weird, unsettled unfamiliarity was something that I was really drawn to as well.
Did anyone
It's very apt, that experience of like moving away from home, because I've moved interstate as well, and going back, not to Canberra necessarily, because my mum lives in Yass now, but even going back there, because I lived in about a year and a half in Yass, just going back and being like, oh, I'm at home with my family and I feel very at home with these people, but I don't know this space. I'm not familiar with the space. And so it's kind of like, can I sit here? Is it okay if I do this here? Can I use the kitchen? And Mom's like, yeah, just do whatever. I'm like, I know, but it feels weird. It was such an apt description of that feeling.
I always feel, maybe this is a bit unrelated, soz, but I always think about the fact that I've lived in this house ever since I was born, and so the idea of moving around is so strange to me, and I already fear the day that I will have to move out of this place and how I'm going to deal with it. And being apart from everything here, never being able to just like look at this place again or come back inside this place. I hope that thinking about it now will prepare me for the loss, but I don't know if it will.
Yeah,
I have to say, as someone who, like, we rented a lot when I was a kid, so we didn't actually stay in a house for more than 12 months until I was 10 or 11, maybe 12, when my parents bought their first house. And I don't think it prepares you at all. I think it always feels like that.
The weirdest sense of home for me, because we moved around quite a bit as well. This house we're in now is the longest we've been in a house, but I'm the opposite. I'm itching now. Like, we got to 5 years in this house and my mother and I were like, okay, and the next one. Granted, we stayed another 5 after that, but now, yeah, I get too itchy in the same house for too long. But I find the weirdest sense of home, which is also probably a little tangenty, is seeing someone else's belongings in a home that you lived in. Like there's been a couple instances where I've been into a home that I used to live in that someone else now lives in. And it's a
Whoa,
really
that would be
weird
so
sense
weird.
of this used to be my home and my belongings, and I have all of these memories that exist within this home. Or even just driving past a home and like I used to live there and now the trees are so many feet taller and like that trailer wasn't there when I was there and they've done a renovation. That is always the weirdest sense of home to me. Like that's my home and you have changed it in some way.
I remember when I first moved to Melbourne, and then when I came back to Adelaide and I visited my old they were still my friends, but also I had been I had shared a house with them when I in Adelaide. I went and visited that same share house, but obviously I'd moved out and someone else had moved in, and I was like, oh, it's so weird to be in a place that was like my home with the people I lived with, but then also realize that there's like not really like this isn't my home anymore, and I don't live here, and I don't fit in the same way. Yeah, it's very strange.
I feel like I would I feel like I would feel so mad at people for living in there. I'd be like, get out. What are you doing in my house?
Get out of my swamp.
One of my favorite bits of the book that really stood out to me, because there were lots of moments in this book where I sort of like had to stop and not, I don't have the physical book, I had the ebook, so I had to stop and put the ebook down and kind of like take a bit of a walk and like process something that she'd written. And it's towards the end of the book where she says, perhaps this is all that home is, the place where we know the rules. Perhaps it's just this that I'm missing, to not have to work so hard just to get around, just to get by. And that hit me so hard in the chest as someone who has trouble like in public spaces and in places that aren't my home. I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. I know the rules in my house. That's what it is.
And
So really,
the
that really hit me.
surrounds as well, like the amount of effort that she has to go to know what cafes are nearby and what foods exactly she can eat and when she can eat them. And then when that local cafe was unexpectedly closed, it's like you can feel the panic on the page. That would be kind of, I guess, like a form of displacement as well. Like you're still there, but the place itself is not following the rules that it was supposed to be following.
Yeah.
She does cover that I think in a couple of the essays, this idea of the place that you were once so familiar with, or that either changing while you're gone or changing around you while you're there. And like she talks a bit about gentrification and the ways that like these suburban spaces become more urban, and the urban spaces somehow more suburban, and this like weird class and race changing as well in the way that these places are constructed. And I've been thinking about that where I live, which is a very like, it used to be a very like leafy sort of place, but it still kind of is, except that I noticed that all the trees around where my house is have been cut down.
Yeah, that's happening in mine too.
Yeah, and that like, for example, my grandma used to live next door to me, and like years and years and years ago, she sold that house, and then the people she sold the house to sold the house, and she used to have this beautiful garden. She used to have like several huge gum trees on her property. All of it got like flattened, then subdivided, and like new houses built on it. And it's just kind of like, oh, I just find it so sad. Like I feel
it's
so
a painfulness.
sad to see all these big gum trees go. And then when I look out my window now and there's there's trees, but the ones that used to like shroud my house are just gone. And I'm like, man, you got to plant them on your own property.
but I thought what was interesting in the book too is that idea of not having property, of like being moved on every time the rent's high, and that one bedroom she talks about being comfortable in as her study where she works with her dog, and she likes the view of the garden, and this idea that you have it's taken from you. It's not even a choice to move out or go, or that you get this sense of constantly that her routines and her comfort are taken from her.
Yeah. Such an interesting parallel, obviously, on purpose to, I think the phrase that she uses, she's unhomed from her body by the disease. And that was so like beautiful in a very sad way to me to describe it like that, because that's another thing you don't have a choice in. And yeah, that description of being unhomed is so apt. Again, I was really struck by a lot of the descriptions of chronic illness in this, because they were so familiar to me, and I was like, oh, I've never heard it worded that way before. You're unhomed in a place that you like. The one place you should be able to feel at home in is your body, because you're there all the time, but it's almost like your body's your enemy, so you can never quite be at home in it. So I was like, oh, unhomed, that's wowzers.
Yeah, it's such a profound book. And on that note too, I think there's a really interesting point where she's talking about the stats around mental illness, and talking about how 12 million people in our country, in a population barely twice that, live with some kind of chronic disease. And she goes into that bit, just thinking about being unhomed, into this bit about how she has been kind of groomed her whole life into thinking she will get better, that you can do all of these things. And it's a bit like you can extrapolate that out into most of the, because her essays kind of resonate with all these echoes. This idea that you think the housing crisis will get better, that things will get better. And there's a kind of moment of having to think, this is who I am. Do you know, like, this is it. This is maybe the goal in life is not to get better, but to live in this body in this moment. Like, I felt like that kept coming up, that it's to stay here in this moment. And that's kind of the extreme sensory detail she puts in of what she's looking at, the smells, the dog, all of that daily life is around. And that's like, Peyton, when you were saying about moving out, I feel like the only way you get through it is by going, it's going to feel strange for a while, and not to expect it to be, you are unhomed and you're going to feel unhomed until this feels like home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I underlined so many. I won't be able to find them now, but I know the exact parts of the book that you're talking about. And I did underline quotes where, I know that she says something that I underlined and I thought it was beautiful. And then in the next paragraph, she explains the idea of the social model of disability. And I felt like the explanation she gave of it before she explained that model was actually even more, I don't know, it was just better, even better than what I've learned about the social model of disability, because even that model can be a bit limited in some ways. Like, I'm not going to be able to find it now. I'm pretty sure it was a metaphor. And
I've written this down. I know exactly what you mean. You're talking about the gravity problem. When she talks about the gravity problem, because I found this was my my second favorite bit of the whole book. I have another one as well. But where she says, a gravity problem is a predicament that either can't be solved at all, no matter how hard or how often you try, or that can't be solved because it has been misapprehended as a problem in the first place. The allegory is one of movement. If you're trying to find a way to move more quickly or efficiently, one of the obstacles is gravity. But you can't solve gravity as a problem, mostly because it's not a problem. At best, it's just a thing that's always there. At worst, it's what you have to work around.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's the one.
That's the one.
That blew me away. That thought, like, such a good metaphor, the idea of gravity.
Yeah. And now I found one of the other things that I underlined about our common conception of illness, from Emily Martin, which sees the body as a scene of total war between ruthless invaders and determined defenders. And like the way that we speak about our bodies is so violent and authoritative and controlling. Yeah. We've got problems.
We do.
Basically.
And that's you know, when Justine at the beginning you said that she gets to that point of how to be a person in the world. There's such gentleness to that expression that immediately makes me feel better. The idea, like the way you expressed it. And I was like, that's what she does, is she takes this violence that is being done to her and she turns it into this kind of, I guess, loving kindness, like gentleness.
And I find it really powerful the way, as you said earlier, the way that, you know, her focus narrows at times in her life, sometimes because of chronic illness or her body. And then the small details that she finds some kind of solace in, like these small routines and like various other aspects of day-to-day existence that become significant and important, and in fact always have been significant and important, but don't, like, because they're not a big like cataclysmic thing in your life, they're a constant or like an everyday thing, you don't attribute that significance to them. And I found that really interesting as well, because like, I mean, I think it resonated with me as well in a lot of ways with my experiences of like mental health and mental illness, including what's it called, when she is trying to find treatment and then keeps getting pushed back, and that like she talks about one phone conversation where she's in the process of getting told her case is too complex for her to be admitted into this one hospital, and the doctor says, "Oh, I wouldn't want you to feel abandoned or alone in this," and she's like, "Obviously that's exactly how I feel when you're telling me." Well, she doesn't spell it out like this, but you can tell in the moment that
it's a direct quote.
That's exactly how she's feeling in that moment. And I was like, man, I just remember being told once by like a counselor that my problems were too existential for her to be able to help with. And I was like, thank you for telling me that you can't help me.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. What a mood lifter.
It's okay. Luckily, writers are constantly reckoning with existential dilemmas that I can read their works.
But I liked her focus on not only details but routines and habits, and there's that bit where she's talking about how we privilege restlessness over rootedness, I think is what she says.
Yeah, like imminent time and transcendent time.
And the fact that this, well, no, it's the bit where she says like we're conditioned to see standing still as some kind of stasis, but that you'll eventually move on from, whereas like habits can be so helpful and making you feel like a person in the world. And she uses this phrase, moving in, I think it's moving in repeated tiny orbits. I really liked, because it's true, it helps you, it helped her stay sane to keep moving in her little orbits, as opposed to this way that we are kind of like, we privilege people being restless and always doing a new thing. It's like, no, little habits are good to keep you sane.
And just to please, Peyton, we could come back to Marx and capitalism. The idea that we have this kind of expansionist view, like, of the world, that we should be patriarchal and conquer things and grow and like keep going, and instead
colonizing our spaces.
Yes, and ourselves, our bodies, and instead of thinking that actually there is just as much kind of value, nobility, meaning, all of it in a small life. That actually a small life is a life.
And totally fine.
Maybe joyful, maybe a really joyful thing.
Maybe totally okay. But then, of course, on the flip side, she's very frustrated about the fact that travel, that she wants to be the kind of person that travels, but she just can't be because of all the complications, and that's very sad and frustrating to her. So it is like a double-edged sword, definitely. But it's also, if it's your reality, like, you have to learn to live with it somehow.
Yeah, and that's where the social disability stuff came in again, I think, after the gravity, which is stuff you talk about a lot, Millie, actually. I think about some reading groups we've been in where you've brought it up. But the idea where she talks about how a disability is only a problem because the world doesn't accommodate it. It's not a problem in and of itself all the time. Sometimes it is.
I'm sort of two minds about it. I think we need both models of disability, both the social and the whatever the medical, because like, it's so true. There are so many parts of disability which are disabling because of how our society is built. But there are also parts of disability that are just fact. Like, people are always like, oh, you wouldn't struggle so much if people accommodated for autism. And it's like, yeah, but I also have trouble with the sun. So we can't make this, you can't socially,
and pain.
It's
also
fine.
Pain. We have to acknowledge pain is a
right,
thing.
like pain, and there's pain that we can't treat, or we can't treat to a level where it doesn't exist. And it's like, you can't do anything about that,
not
socially.
just pain, but distress, like, even like,
which is why we need people very, like, I understand why people hate the medical model, and I know why people like the social model, but I do think we have to have both.
Yeah.
I saw a TikTok recently actually of someone talking about one of the challenges of creating of improving accessibility of different spaces and things, and that being that also often people have conflicting accessibility needs, like
definitely
that like something that can be a sensory overload for someone else could be, you know, an issue. Like the accommodation you make can then create an accessibility issue for someone with a different disability or different access needs.
Yeah.
And so how do you navigate those conflicts?
Yeah.
I liked that her acceptance of this chronic illness, accepting it as chronic, the gravity problem, then made it easier for her, kind of a relief to then advocate for herself. It felt like she was really empowered to do that afterwards, whereas before she was denying it and not wanting to inconvenience everyone around her.
Because she expected it to get better, right? Because she was always expecting to get better, to get to a point where she was cured. So it was always like, well, this is just, it's an inconvenience for now. Like, I'll just swallow it for now. Like, it's fine. Whereas when she finally accepts that it's not going away, that's when she can start to speak up for herself. I agree. I really liked that as well.
Yeah.
She did seem more empowered afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying earlier, Peyton, in the way that we talk about our bodies as being quite like intense, but also that idea of talking about ourselves as a problem. And if, you know, part of disability or chronic illness or is like it you know, there's the impulse to completely separate your concept of self from that. But on the other hand, by treating a part of your own experience and your day-to-day life as this problem that needs to be defeated and conquered, you're treating a part of yourself as something that needs to be defeated and conquered. And maybe accepting that as a part of yourself can be an important step into, again, figuring out how to be a person in the world.
Yeah. Peyton mentioned my favorite bit, which was the transcendent time and the imminent time. That bit I loved.
So good. I don't know how to find it. Wait.
I've got it. It's on page 148 if you want to read it.
148.
Bottom of 148.
148. Is it the same part I underlined?
I think it kind of also, because the way she's just such an incredible essay writer, because everything resonates with everything else. And I felt like this also resonates with the gravity problem and everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, everything, not only do the many different vignettes within an essay all make perfect sense together, but then every different essay makes so much sense together as well. I found the quote. Did you want to read it or did you want me to read it?
You read it. I read the last one. You read this one.
Transcendent time is that rare luminous time of important or startling events, like travel or those intense first weeks of falling in love, or the sweeping grief of sudden loss, the shock of an argument that wounds. These are moments where we are transported out of our regular selves and assumptions, where time feels different, slowed, or furiously hastened. It is time that breaks the rules of everyday life. Imminent time, however, is the rules. It is regular, unruffled, it passes mostly without us noticing, but we need imminent time to rest, to reflect, to maintain our sense of self, and it is within imminent time that we live more completely and more often, if less intensely. It is here that we are at home wherever we may physically be, and it was to here I needed to return at the end of every day in order to return to myself. Which is exactly what Millie was saying before, the orbiting.
Yeah.
It's true. I feel like imminent time is my comfort zone.
Yeah. It's nice to feel like maybe I don't have to be so ashamed of that.
Yeah. I think that's what this does. I think the personal essay does this as a form. Like, I'm not an expert in the field, but, you know, I think in the West, going back to the 16th century when people started writing personal essays, it's like a quest to kind of understand something about yourself, and then through that to, I don't know, find some kind of way to make it okay. To like piece the bits together. Because once you start writing about yourself, have you guys done it much? Does anyone journal?
Yeah, I journal
I used to.
a bit.
The first the first thing I've written about myself is that we were each putting up bits of life writing for this month as part of this month. That's kind of the first, which
So
wasn't even
beautiful, by
Yeah,
the
well,
way.
you
Anyone
nailed it.
watching this, go and find it.
everyone did really well. Every
Yeah.
time someone put something up, I was like, oh my God, it's like we should be writers. Not just book clubbers. No, that's the first bit I've done, but I know that people journal all the time. And when I saw Justina's bit of journal, I was like, I've always seen journaling as like, and I know it's
A
not,
diary.
but I always see it as like a diary. And I'm like, no, you can do so much more with it.
Yeah.
I didn't put this
Definitely.
on the post, but that was actually like the title of that notes app on my phone that I was journaling into was I think it said CBT DIY CBT app, because my psychologist had recommended me a bunch of different CBT apps, but the idea of putting another app on my phone made me want to claw my skin off. So I was like, it's just a journal of what you think and feel at any given moment. So I just put it in my notes app. And then at first I was like, it started off as very like this, you kind of see it in that note where I just like thought, and I would describe something that happened, and then I would write just very clinically, this is the thought that I had, this is the feeling that I felt. And then I was like, actually, this is a very interesting way to write about my life, and I started to kind of quite enjoy it.
I really like it because I never journaled because I thought I would have to wait for something kind of remarkable to happen to me before I'd have something to worry about. And then it would inevitably just be a journal a quarter of the way full of me like ranting about people in my family who had upset me that day and nothing else.
Also a valid form of journaling.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh,
People
my
were
child.
saying,
I was going to say my childhood diary is so funny because for a while I kept a diary. This would have been as like, I would say between the ages about 10 and 12. And it was because at that age I really wanted to be a famous author. And one of my favorite authors was Roald Dahl. And I had read Boy and Going Solo, his autobiographical books. And I was like, well, I don't think I have a good enough memory to be able to just write that. So I was like, I need to journal all of this because it's going to be extremely important when I go to write my memoirs as a famous author.
I envy people who
so
journal because I was thinking that about Fiona Wright's book. I was like, I don't know how you remember all of that. I was thinking the same with Olivia de Silva's book. I don't know how you remember all of that stuff, especially like we don't in our everyday lives prioritize the mundane stuff, and I feel like we don't take the time to stop and think about it unless you're one of those unique, remarkable people who does recognize the importance of it and you do lock it into your memory.
Except I think the reason I asked about journaling is because I think what often trips people up writing about the self is trying to make sense of it or get a linearity to it. Well, like, I bet, Peyton, if we set some exercises of write about something that happened when you were 5, or write about a Christmas from when you were growing up, or write about a birthday party, or write about your first bike, or I bet you could get the detail of stuff. Describe your first bedroom. Like,
I don't know. Oh, I can do that. Hot pink walls.
Yeah.
I'm on Peyton's team though. My memory is so bad that Fiona would say something very specific about like an interaction, like the interaction she has with the woman at the pharmacist, kind of in the middle of the book. Oh, where the woman says something and she interprets it wrong, and the woman had actually said that she was a widow, not a weirdo.
Not a weirdo.
I was like,
I know, I would do that. I would sit there going, oh, I feel for you because I would have done the exact same thing.
Also, I feel like
but it's such a specific moment, and I'm like, I don't even think that is so specific and embarrassing that you would remember it, but I don't even think I'd remember those sort of things.
But you guys could write about Sunday night, for example, when we had a drink. You could describe the bar and the people and the vibe.
I feel like, I mean, I feel like part of it is practice, right? Like if you're in the business of writing about your own life, business is such a clinical way of putting it, but like if you're someone who journals or writes poetry or writes personal essays, like, or even just puts things in like, your phone's notes app as you think about it, like you're like creating a bit of a record, but at the same time, memory is something that's so slippery that I feel like this impulse to try to accurately recollect our pasts is always going to be flawed. So you may as well lean into the slipperiness of it. And that's something Olivia De Silva talked about a little bit in our interview, of like not trying to make everything this incredibly, like this perfect linear, like, you know, very sort of traditional narrative, and actually leaning into all of the ways that things can be like mirrored and layered and multifaceted.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, if you sense any distraction, Peyton's cat has been adorably distracting.
I was like, oh my gosh, cat butt.
And she won't even like face the camera and say hi. You just look at her butt. Tail.
That's very cat.
You have to pay for the face. It's like Michael Jackson in that one commercial or whatever. He would only have one shot of his face or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to bring up, just ask you guys a question about that section in Iceland, which is where the imminent and transcendent time is that thing about going away that she has, and that you kind of think you're going to enjoy it, right? Like you think I've been looking forward to this, I'm going to enjoy it. And then you get there and you're like, oh, it's a bit overwhelming. I don't know. And the way she immediately establishes new routines, that she establishes that orbit to cope. Like I go to this coffee shop, I go there at that time of day, this will happen. And that's how she recenters herself. And I thought that makes sense to me, because we just went away, and if we were staying somewhere, we went to the same coffee place every morning, just like, so you've got that little orbit before you kick off.
Yeah, we do that. We used to do that when we travel. When I was traveling, like with mum and my siblings and stuff. Yeah, it'd be like a place that we would go every day for breakfast or something, you know.
I actually really love that about traveling. Yeah, especially if you stay in the same place for a little bit, like for more than a couple days. But even you can even get this feeling in a couple days, honestly. But like even just that habit of going to like the same coffee place, it gives you that feeling of home in a way that then makes me so nostalgic for that trip, in a way that maybe seeing the big, you know, transcendent thing doesn't, in the way that I'm like, oh, but that's the coffee shop that I always drank coffee for the 1 week that I stayed there, you know. It's
I don't have like routine often when I go away, because the person I go away with is very much the kind of person that's like, pack as many things into a day as possible. Therefore, we have to leave at this time in the morning and only get back at this time of night. So like for me, I get the feeling of home in that time when you return from everything you've done during the day. And it's the place that you're staying at becomes that kind of homey feel very quickly for me, because it's like, as someone with quite a lot of social anxiety, this is the place that I can be comfortable, even if it's not my normal comfort place. That's kind of, as long as I have someone to return to.
Yeah. One of my favorite days when we were in Hobart was the day we literally did nothing. I don't think we were all sick at that point, but
I'm trying to remember, because I feel like that describes several of the days.
Yeah, but also that, before I was like, I loved that holiday so much, but I really hope it wasn't boring for the others. And then I was like, I'm sure if I loved it, they probably did as well, even if we spent a great deal of time just sitting in our really cute apartment, looking at the huge windows at the mountain with the snow on it.
But that's the thing. Like I went to Melbourne this year, and like some of my favorite parts of it were sitting in my hotel room alone. Just like I was watching Anthony Bourdain on the TV. Like, not that the thing I went to Melbourne for was amazing, and it was like that transcendent moment. And like we went to the aquarium, which is my favorite thing to do when I travel, because there's no aquarium here.
Oh my God, I love an aquarium.
That was, you know, that was transcendent. But like those bits are almost made better by the fact that you have the small moments. If I was peaked the whole day, I would not remember any of it, because I would be so overwhelmed. But the fact that like I could go to the aquarium, come back and sit in my hotel for a couple of hours, go to Critical Role, come back to my hotel, you know, that's what made it special. Whereas I don't understand doing something the whole day and then only coming back at the end of the day. That would drive me crazy.
Yeah, I don't mind at the end of the day, because I'm very much, if you plan everything and all I have to do is go where I'm told and I don't have to make a single decision, I'm
That's
having
fair.
a fine time. It doesn't bother me.
I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember this, right?
I have a
That
friend
makes sense.
who I travel with, and one of the great things about us traveling together is that we seem to get like tired at the exact same time. And it's very funny because we'll like, we'll get up in the morning, we'll go do stuff during the day, and then like we'll have lunch somewhere, and then we get the dip. And then there's a bit where we'll always sort of look at each other and be like, yeah, we're going back to the accommodation and we're gonna nap until 5 p.m. And then we'll get back up and we'll pick somewhere to go have dinner and do something in the evening.
I love
and
this
it's
about
like,
all of you because you're
it's great.
supposed to enjoy it. So you've got
Yeah.
to find how you enjoy it, right? There's no point
Yeah.
forcing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it takes a while to learn. You don't, that's not instinctive, you have to travel a couple of times before you figure out, oh, I am the kind of person that needs to nap in the afternoon.
and have some quiet and no input for a bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, there was another section I liked for two reasons, which was just that bit about peaches, and I think it's called Slipstone Clingstone. It's about just a whole thing about peaches.
Yeah.
And poetry, where she weaves through the poetry, and it's sort of about the complexity of her relationship to food, and this one piece of fruit sort of stands in for it. That how she comes at the idea of the peach, and I loved it anyway. And then I got to the end, and the last bit of the poem, I'm just going to shout out to him, was by the poet Tom Shapcott, who was my honours coordinator and one of my co-supervisors. He's an amazing poet. He lives in Queensland.
Oh.
And yeah, I just wanted to read Tom's line, which is, those who have seen visions do not smile, they speak, they take a ripe peach and bite. And I just thought that's such a beautiful line as well. And the way she uses poetry, like throughout that piece, is so beautiful. And you just get that sense that she's getting the same sensual kind of pleasure from the poetry she is from the fruit. Like, 'cause some fruit's really overripe, some is not quite ripe. And the poems kind of like go with the different pieces of fruit. I thought that was so beautiful.
I always feel like I'm very out of practice reading and interpreting poetry, but the way that you've just described it makes me think maybe my problem is that I'm overthinking it and I'm losing the actual affect of the poetry.
Yeah, because I think
And I should
sometimes
just embrace that.
poetry, the minute you read it loud, like Abby's poem, like I thought your poem actually moved me to tears because if anyone hasn't seen it, get on Instagram. But it's about anticipatory grief, and that is such a feeling I feel every day. So it really moved me that I'm constantly knowing this is transient. And I think with poetry, like with that, the minute you read it aloud, it takes on this extra level of, I don't know, sensuality or affect, or it's more tactile. There's something about poetry that is more than just words and meaning, right? It's just there's a whole experience of it.
I think about poetry the way I think about art. And I think people should approach it the same way, in that, like, you should stand in front of a piece of art and whatever it makes you feel, that's what it makes you feel. And some art and some poetry is made to be technical, and it's made to be something, I'm experimenting with this, and this is form, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of art and a lot of poetry, you are just meant to read it, and what you take from it is what you take from it.
Yeah,
I think people do get a bit hung up on like the technicals of poetry. It's like, no, just read it.
The way we
see how you
teach it
feel.
in school.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, it is. It is.
We're taught to be scared of poetry, and to a degree of visual art. We're taught that like there is a correct meaning that you must like learn how to interpret, and especially when people's first encounters with poetry, and if their first encounter is in school, is often with frankly Shakespeare, which is like it's no wonder that often people feel like poetry isn't something they even can relate to, or that they are in some ways not equipped to
that poetry
it.
is something that has to be translated in some way.
But
my first experience
with annotations.
My first experience was in school, and it was more so like that poetry has rules. It has to meet these certain beats, and it has rules to it. Where when you actually start reading poetry, which I'm not a huge poetry reader, but when you start reading poetry, there are no rules really to it, right?
It's just that there are rules to some kind of poetry, but you can choose to follow them or you can choose not to.
But it's also like romance, that the rules are supposed to disappear a bit, really. Do you know? Like they're a scaffold. but actually you want the experience to be more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
I find that I really love, especially something like this, like as personal essays, but I love when poets write prose, because I often feel like there's so much that prose writers can learn from poetry and from the way they use words and like feel out all of the different meanings of words and think about how to put how to phrase really hard to describe emotions and experiences. I just think there's like a really fascinating way that poets can like turn the world into words that I'm just like it ends up being like such beautiful prose as well.
I used to write a bit of poetry more so like that as an exercise or a practice in writing like figurative language and stuff like that. And I would pretty much always drive to the beach, which I live right near, and I was always pretty much describing the same thing over and over and over again. And it made me
think. Does it turn up in your novels? Like, do you find that?
I think I almost go too far into metaphor territory, and I do too many metaphors, and it's all the time, and there are like multiple at once, and then I have to edit it down and just pick one.
This is so interesting. I wanted to bring this up for the other life writing app, and I totally forgot. I cannot remember what her name is now, but there's a poet who teaches a class, like she teaches, and when she teaches, she gets her students to go away and just write observations. And she says, "You're not like, don't write similes, don't write metaphors, just write down what you're observing." And the students really, really struggle with it at first, because our tendency is like with poetry to be like, I must create beautiful metaphors. But then eventually those students will start coming back and just having written straight observations. And she said that was some of the most beautiful poetry, because people don't stop and just write it plain anymore. And I was actually thinking about this while I was reading this book, because obviously there is beautiful simile and metaphor, and the whole book's a metaphor, but some of those sections where she's just describing people and like the people around her doing things and little interactions she's had with people really moved me, because even though it's written so quote plainly, it was still so beautiful just in its simpleness, I feel like. And so I totally get where you're coming from. Sometimes it's like we've gone so far this way with metaphor. It's like, no, just write what you see, because that can still be really beautiful.
Often when I was sorry.
No, you go, Peyton, you go.
Often when I was my most uninspired and I was like, I just need to write something, I think those were often my favorites, because it was a bit more stripped back. I was like, I'm just going to try and describe the color of the sky. And then that would be it.
Do you do that, all of you, as you're walking around every day? Like, do you pick words? Like, how would I describe that? What would I do?
Yeah, sometimes I do, I think. Yeah.
I do it with dialogue mostly, and some of that is the autism, because it's like scripting and stuff. But a lot of the time I'll be having a conversation with someone and be like, how would I describe this? How would I put this down in dialogue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who was telling me part of what she's done, like part of what she's been doing with her like writing practice these days is doing these like morning pages, where I think a lot of writers do it, where you will just write for a certain amount of time in the morning, and it doesn't have to be any particular project. It could be journaling, it could be whatever. But and she was telling me, even if she has nothing, like if she feels like she has nothing in the tank, nothing to write about, she'll just describe what she can see and just start writing by just like, like you said, Millie, in that exercise, just like describing the view outside her window or something like that. And I was like, actually, that's such an important thing to practice.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
What were you going to say, Abby, before when I interrupted you? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, it's gone. I couldn't even tell you what the thought was. It was
gone. A line. It was a line that you loved. That's what I interrupted you.
Yes. All I was going to say, harking back to like what Millie was saying about how simple the language is, I feel like I felt that most in the line where she breaks up with her partner at the time. And it's just, it's like, because it's in that segmented style that she does in the vignette style, it's just a single line, and it's so simple and to the point of, this is what happened. We cried. There was nothing else that we could do. I felt that most in that moment, that there was no figurative language at all. It was so simple, and I felt quite moved by it.
Yeah.
And I think that underwriting actually makes emotion hit harder always.
I'm like you.
Sometimes just
I have to
saying
go
the
back
thing,
through my fiction and strip it. I'm way too figurative and like
Whoopsies.
floaty.
How are we going for time? I think we're nearly out of time. We've got about
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
we've
we
got
are.
5 minutes left.
Oh my gosh.
So any
that went so
last
fast.
things you want to say about? I mean, I'm really grateful you recommended it. I loved it.
Oh,
Mm.
Yeah, I
I
really enjoyed it.
admit that I have not actually read Small Acts of Disappearance yet.
Uh,
So I feel like I should, considering how much I love this book.
Abby, we cut you off.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, as a commentary on the form itself, that it was really nice to read memoir, autofiction, whatever, or short essays, whatever you would call it, because and do a whole month on it, because my experience with it is so limited, and I was of the opinion that there was a certain kind of memoir, and there was a certain kind of, because obviously I hadn't read widely enough. And so it was really nice to read this and see like the difference in the form, and then realize that actually I do engage a lot in life writing. Like all of the music I listen to is a form of life writing.
Yeah. And poetry.
And poetry,
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
I found the name of
that's my comment.
that poet that I was talking about, just in case anyone wants to look her up. It's Marie Howe.
Marie Howe. Amazing.
That's
We should
it.
do a poetry month. We should do that.
We should.
Or an after dark on poetry.
I get so fired up about poetry.
Awesome.
I want to see it. I want to see Millie fired up about poetry.
Yeah, we need this. We need this in our lives. Well, if you have not yet got around to it, if you're listening to us and you have not yet read Fiona Wright's The World Was Whole, it is just moving, deeply moving, and it actually really made me pay attention to my daily life and really actually treasure my daily life, even the problematic bits. And now I guess it's time to announce what next month is. So we are somehow up to October. I'm not sure how. And so, of course, it's Halloween. So we're going to be doing some horror this month. We're going to have lots of special guests. We'll be talking about lots of aspects of horror. And then our book of the month is Feast While You Can. Which I can't remember what year it came out. Does anyone know?
Yeah, I think it was maybe late last year.
It's recent. It was 2024. Yeah, last year. And it's by Michaela Clements and Anjali Datta. And we were lucky enough to get to interview them. So you will see our interview with them in the coming months. And they were just so fascinating about horror. I wish I'd had 5 hours to talk to them because they said a lot of the things that we've circled for years when we talk about romance and horror. So this book is like a mashup, kind of, but not. It's also like, I think it fulfills a horror. It's got romance in there as well, but not really romance so much as literary romance, I would say. It's a much more literary book. So especially coming after Fiona Wright, I think it's a good book because it's still a more literary style, and it was really unique. I don't know how you guys think. I've already read it clearly because I interviewed them. So I'm going to read
I'm
it.
yet to read it, but I'm excited.
I'm also yet to read it, but I'm very, very keen.
And I will say I thought the audiobook was good, was really good. So
Nice.
Good, because that's how I'll be reading it. So
October isn't just Halloween though.
No.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's my birthday.
It's your birthday.
Party hard on the Amy Book Club.
Big one, and it's feeling like a big one, I'll tell you that, guys. I'm glad to be here though. I'm glad to still be here.
Okay.
I would like to
I wasn't worried about you before you said that.
Like I'm getting old. I really love this so much. I think we could do another one of these like non-fiction months too, or memoir months. I don't think
we're so much more out there. Yeah.
We have not got enough months in next year to do everything we want to do. So we're just doing the best that we can. Thanks for joining us, for everyone who joined us live. If not, thanks for listening to us. And don't forget to grab your copy of Feast While You Can and read it for October. And if you haven't yet read The World Was Whole, go grab yourself a copy. It's a lovely meditation. If you need a book to remind you about the joys of imminent time in your everyday life, that's the book for you. Anyway, thank you, Abby, Justina, Millie, and Peyton. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.